Good evening everyone and welcome back to a Planet Zoo video today with my top 5 features. I usually don't do this, but since there's been so much info around the E3 recently and we have been now a couple of months in after the reveal of Planet Zoo, I thought it's about time to talk about what we know so far and put that kind of in an order of the most interesting, for me at least, very subjective, but the best features we know about so far and put them in order, so let's not lose too much time and talk about the first thing, which is staff pathing. So it was pretty hard to pick an order here, but it was pretty easy actually to make sure that staff pathing is in there. So for those of you who don't know the other Frontier games, so for example Planet Coaster, there is a lot of staff management in the game. However, we don't really have dedicated staff pathing that the normal guests and visitors don't use. So it's a really welcome addition that we are, we have more tools at hand now to make sure that there's also like a backstage management system in place that can be only used by the staff members of your zoo. And I think in particular for a zoo, this is pretty important. And also taking into consideration that they already confirmed there is kind of a, say a feature that guests don't really want to see the backstage area. This adds even more of a challenge to the game for you as a player to make sure that the backstage area is also somewhat hidden and nicely tied into your zoo in the whole planning of the zoo, which is a very cool feature and makes up for my 5th place in this list. And here we go with the first place, which is the education in the game. It was pretty hard to put that one on 4th place. It could have easily been higher up here, but we're gonna talk about the other things on position 3 to 1, and you know why I put it here. But education is a super nice feature, which, to be honest, wasn't really that much given at the very beginning. You know, as Planet Zoo has been revealed that it will be there, I had very high expectations, and I am really still very blown away by what we know so far. So I really love that education plays a big role. That honestly, this also confirms, and what they said multiple times now, that they are following a modern approach on a zoo, which definitely has a lot to do with education in that kind of sense. So I'm pretty happy that it doesn't really follow the old kind of zoo-ish game road, so to say, where you are only following the main goal to make your zoo completely profitable and running nicely with a lot of animals in, which still will be a thing in Planet Zoo as well, but I mean the focus is also that your guests are well educated, that you learn more about the animals, so there's a lot more science going in, which is totally relevant in 2019, and so I'm a big fan that this will be a huge feature of the game and not only a side feature, and that's what I really love about what we know so far. And yeah, a well-deserved 4th place in my current list. And bear in mind, this is the current status. It can all change because we definitely don't know everything right now, so please, just as a reminder, this is only for the given moment after the E3, and we're gonna change this list potentially in the future. But now let's move on to 3rd place. Alrighty, so this is the breeding mechanics, and breeding obviously I think is in comparison to, for example, the education and also the staff passing, one of the features that definitely had to be in the game. It's kind of a do or die feature, and breeding itself is not like breeding, because there could have been a simple breeding system that kind of, you have a male and a female animal that are kind of living together in one enclosure for a given time, and then the game says, all right, now they're starting to have a baby and breeding. Done. This is what most games used to do in the past, and which kind of works, but to be honest, it's not 2019. So knowing that Frontier goes this step further and makes us also worry about the genes, the family genes, and also make sure that we don't have animals of the same family get together and breed, because that definitely is not good for the lineage and for the family and for the genes of the future children. So really keeping an eye on having different family members from different families breeding together, rather than having breeding within a family, which in itself is not a good thing. So that kind of is a really cool thing, and also we don't really know too much about breeding yet, so it could potentially go even higher in the list, but for now it makes up for the 3rd place, because I just think that, let alone the confirmation that breeding is a bit more complicated and a bit more complex than in what we've seen in past games. This definitely is already a great addition to the game, and yeah, I can't wait to see more about this mechanics. And yeah, I have to play the trailer basically in the background because there is not much more I can do about breeding, I guess. Anyhow, so let's move on to second place, and that is weather. Some of you might have expected this to be the first place, I guess. I think weather is one of the features that people that have played Planet Coaster and also Jurassic World Evolution have been waiting for the most in the Planet universe. Weather is not only visually stunning, obviously, and gives you somewhat of a variety in how the game looks and feels. In terms of a zoo and animals and the management aspect, it really plays a super important role. And considering all the images and footage we've seen so far, it really does the job as you would expect it to. There is a lot going on. Animals do search for kind of sheds and places to hide from rain. You need to make sure that animals that, you know, can't withstand the heat or vice versa, cold and freezing too much, you have to make sure that you take care of that and give them places to get warm or effectively search for shade, or get cold or have water to go in. So a lot of things that make the whole game a bit more dynamic. So which is, I think weather in itself is a cool thing, and you know, also making sure that the weather really has the effect that it changes the way you play the game, and not only making people buy umbrellas like crazy and making it a freaking money printing machine, hashtag Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 and 2. So it really is a very nice addition and a well-deserved second place here. And yeah, I guess you could put that anywhere in the list. It still has its very worthy mention here, because weather definitely is gonna change how we play the game, and yeah, I can't wait to really test that on my own. But yeah, now first place is the piece-by-piece climbing mechanics. There has been a dev journal just a few days ago, actually yesterday, I guess, or so, which was included in the weekly newsletter, the Zookeeper newsletter, and this again just confirmed that this is my first place. I'm gonna explain you in a second why. I had this picked as my first place as well beforehand, before I read the journal, but the thing about this, why it is so important, I guess, and I'm confident it is so important. I've been listening to a lot of people moaning in the first couple of videos about Planet Zoo that this game will eventually get boring quite quickly because everyone is going to build the same stuff. Absolutely freaking not. Sorry to say so, and usually I'm not the kind of black and white guy, but absolutely freaking not. This system, piece by piece, and I have no freaking idea how Frontier did pull that off. Actually, they kind of explained it a little bit, but there is literally no chance that every enclosure looks the same. I mean, given how Zoo Tycoon in the past looked, and if I remember, I will put in some old footage here, this was really limiting, where you only had these pre-made enclosures and put them down, and again, as those people were right to mention back then, this was really repetitive and makes the whole system really boring in no time, because everything looks the same. With the piece-by-piece building in Planet Coaster, also in Planet Zoo, there's a lot more creativity going on in the buildings itself, but not only in the buildings, because now as the building pieces themselves have even more of a job to do and not only look good and intersect with each other to make buildings look nicer with details, no, they also really have a meaning, which is making the animals use them as enclosure parts, as kind of climbing, as whatever they need, you know. There is collision, there's really something, they interact with the pieces. So it's really up to your planning, your management skills, and obviously also your creativity and imagination, how you are able to pull off a kind of climbing rig for chimpanzees, or like a, let's say, a climbing or a mountain or whatever, like a little bit of a rock work for your big cats or whatever. Make sure that your animals that have a need to climb can do so by the structure you have built yourself. So meaning that every enclosure you build for chimpanzees, for example, will not look like the other before. It will make the game so much more versatile. It will allow you to create crazy buildings that animals are really able to use. I mean, yes, there's a little bit of a letdown because now after the journal we know that you won't be able to build endless pieces within your enclosure that they are able to climb, and also that not every single piece is usable as a climbing rig. But since knowing how many pieces we have in Planet Coaster, for example, that are grid related and non-grid related, just to draw a parallel here, I think we will still have enough pieces. And also reminding you guys of the beginning of Planet Coaster, where we have blueprints, for example, that only could contain 1,000 pieces, and just shortly after we were already up to 4,000 pieces. I could really imagine that they are blowing up the limit as soon as they know how performance is affected or even not affected. So I wouldn't worry too much about this at the given point. But anyways, I think it's really important to mention, and I'm pretty sure that this feature might also stay in first place for me the whole time if there's not anything crazy coming up as well, because I feel like this is the core that will make the game stand out in terms of how people will be able to get creative with it. I do agree to a certain extent that if people are only building always the same zoo because they are given the same tools, you know, a certain limitation in creativity is always leading to basically similar results. But as soon as you give people more versatile tools, they're able to pull off different things. And the piece by piece building in Planet Coaster alone is still today creating stuff that even hardcore players like I am still don't get how other people are able to pull things off. You know, you look at them and you're like, that's nowhere possible to do in Planet Coaster, right? And now, you know, just add this little bit of even more creativity by making animals interact with it. It will create this gigantic toolbox for people to get creative in the game and make crazy things. So there can't be another number one at the moment than the piece by piece building system also for animals. Like, I still remember when I've been sitting there in the room and Frontier showed us the chimpanzee enclosure, and everyone was like, oh, that's like a nice climbing rig, or hopefully they give us a lot of different pre-made tools to use. And they were like casually saying, oh, well, by the way, this is built piece by piece. And everyone, like, you could really literally hear all people's mouths falling apart, and you know, people were searching their chins on the bottom. Like, it's really crazy. If you know what kind of programming stuff and so on is involved in this, that's just insane that they were able to pull that off. And I can't wait to see how good that it really works in the end. But yeah, I think I talked enough about my number one now, and I potentially transported and translated to you guys why I'm so blown away by this feature that I'd love to round it up here and kind of call it a day. So this is my number one, and now let me just give you a brief summary of the whole video. But for now, piece by piece climbing and enclosure building is definitely my number one feature. Alright, so I think as a summary I can say it was pretty hard to pick 5 out of the many good features here, and also it was even harder to put them in order. And as I usually don't do these kind of rating videos anyways, and I won't do too many of those in the future, please don't hate me for doing so, but I just felt like I really need to do that because I just feel like summing up the great features we know about right now is really a cool thing to do. Also for me, just honestly to have that list, because I wanted to kind of put that in order for myself, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. However, now it's your turn to tell me what are the 5 most interesting things or best features you've taken out of Planet Zoo so far, and which of those how you would put them in order. So please let me know below in the comments what is your number one feature, why, and if there's anything else you are really desperately wishing for that kind of would top your list if it will be in the game in the future. So I'd really love to hear that. And now yeah, I just wish all of you a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, and hope to see you in the next episode of whatever on my channel. So if you like the content, you want to stay here and have more of this awesome stuff, make sure to subscribe. And if you just only liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't, well, whatever, then you didn't. So see you in the next one, and have an awesome time, guys. Bye.